Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Eric Hoskins.
Thank you, and I think this is another example where we should all be proud of the McGuinty record and the record of the government in the last 9 years, where we've gone from 25% of our energy being provided by coal to now it's about 3%, and we're on track to phasing it out entirely by 2014. It's the largest greenhouse gas project initiative in all of North America, and as Gerard was saying, it's yielded already incredible dividends in terms of reduced rates of asthma among our kids and fewer smog days in our urban centres. I think that I'm also the mention of the green belt. I think we need to learn those lessons, whether it's the FIT program or I was involved. Some of you might be familiar with the mega quarry that was planned, the largest gravel pit in North America that was planned for north of Toronto, and I was the first MPP to publicly call for a full environmental assessment and wrote a letter to the Minister of the day and received that assurance. And I'm very proud that the community was able to come together and persuade the government that that was the wrong decision because of the concern over the green belt and the water table and endangered species and the like. I think that the next, apart from getting the community consultation right, I think one of the next big things is our blue economy, which is water. We're blessed in this province of having some of the, not only the cleanest water above ground and below ground of any place in the world. We need to protect that resource. It's the most precious resource next to food that we have. And we need to make sure that we not only protect it and preserve it, but we utilize the technology that can help others who perhaps aren't so blessed.
Thank you, Mr. Hoskins. Harinder Thakkar.
Yeah, thank you. I think having clean air by closing the coal plants is the right thing to do. But also the green energy is the right thing to do. But I think the key question is at what cost? Green energy actually is very expensive. I think so. The question that we have to ask ourselves is that affordable? And how is that going to make our businesses uncompetitive moving forward? Although by taking all these actions, what we have done is we generated more than enough energy that we needed in this province. So actually the energy is surplus. So what we need to find out a way is to use the surplus in energy as a lever to attract foreign investment in this country. So what we have done actually up north recently is we have brought in some investments to basically transform our forestry industry. They were asking for about 25 years deal on surplus energy. So if we can give them the deal on the surplus energy, they were willing to invest $250 million into this. So I think that those are the right things to do, but I think the affordability is going to become a key issue because our energy prices are going to move up by about 3.5% for the next several years. And that is going to make us uncompetitive with regards to our other provinces and also with regards to the other states as well. So we need to get very creative on that front to make sure that the investment stays here, the job stays here, and we can actually make sure that we can attract more investment by using our surplus energy.
Thank you, Mr. Thakkar. Last to respond on this question is Kathleen Wynne.
Thank you. When we first started talking about our energy policies and what we were going to do when we came into office, we talked about cleaner, greener, renewable energy, but we also talked about conservation. And I think we did a really good job on jump-starting the green, renewable, and obviously there's some issues that we have there, and we need to untangle those. But I think we lost track in some ways of the conservation discussion. And so from my perspective, the next big thing is actually a thing that we've been talking about for a long time, but really hasn't taken hold, I think, in the way we go about our lives, in the way we light our municipalities, in the way we run our escalators, in the way we light the halls in our buildings, all of those things that we, I think, can do a much better job on. I lived in the Netherlands for 3 years, a million years ago, when my kids were first born. But, 32, 33 years ago, there was more in Western Europe, much more of a conservation mentality on all fronts, whether it was transit, use of fuel, use of electricity. And I think that we have to get there. I think the pricing is going to help us get there, but we need to be very intentional about how to conserve what we know we don't have infinite amounts of. Sorry. Thank you.
That's okay. Thank you, Ms. Wynne.
Well, candidates, now we move on to our second question on environment and energy. Secure and reliable energy is extremely important to our economy. What are your plans as Premier to continue to generate clean energy at an affordable price? And the first to answer will be Glenn Murray.
Well, I think I just described, I think it's happening in other parts of Canada, and they're doing it much less expensively. In Calgary right now, because they changed the way they did their systems, the wind farms, they figured out, actually drove LRT transit more effectively. They didn't try to force wind farms in small rural communities where they weren't wanted. They did the planning. We probably have the best pricing system with feed-in tariffs. We developed incredibly innovative jobs, and we created a lot of green jobs. Now those are under threat because the Chinese are dumping solar panels and undermining some of our strategy. We've got to realize the economy is global and local. But community energy planning isn't just about people locally having more choice. It is that we actually realize that cities plan water, sewer, streets, zoning, land use. They do integrated planning because they know that if you have sprawl, you have to build a lot more roads, so you better have good land use if you don't want to spend too much. Put energy back in the mix the way other provinces do. Why don't we take the best practices? The other thing is, we'll save a few $1 billion over the next few years, which I will contribute to reducing our deficit and putting some more money back into municipalities to help them maintain infrastructure.
Thank you very much. Sandra Pupatella.
Thanks. I think it's fair to say that when we started and we tabled the Green Energy Act, I was going to Germany and California and selling this act to bring jobs to Ontario. It was an exciting time for us, and it worked. We put Ontario on the map internationally as a green energy jurisdiction, and we needed to do that. That was a long time ago, and things have changed. Pricing has changed, and that's forced us, too, to have to change our policies. So what I've outlined already as part of an energy plan is to revisit how we let these contracts out, that we've got to incorporate economies of scale, because that's how we can save money. We have to look, too, that it's a sliver left of megawatts to come out on green energy because it is expensive. So we've got to look at the rest of the mix as well. We're for hydro, we're for nuclear, we're for those things that are green and clean. We also have to talk about transmission and how we can be innovative to get transmission working so that the power can be at the right place at the right time, so that my colleague, when he does all of this planning for us, we can get that power to the right place and we can do it in an affordable fashion. Thank you.
Thank you. Gerard Kennedy.
The biggest thing for our reliable supply is to get the public and the wider industry on board with where we're headed. We did try and do some things centrally. We need to explain what the cost of jobs was, what the cost of trying to really seize the fact that the rivers run the wrong way in Ontario. We don't have the advantages of Manitoba and Quebec, and there had to be some other way to turn our energy need into an advantage. And I think we have to find a way to communicate that the only answer to that question is long-term. We can't make changes on a year-to-year basis. We've got to instead find a way to bring Ontarians along with us in terms of, I think there's more benefit in the Green Energy Act and its outcomes than people are aware of, but there's also more changes that we have to be free to admit have to happen. Some of that is where I think has been said about community control, but not fully disagreeing with Senator. There are economies of scale in those agencies and so on, but I think bringing it down to human size is what we didn't accomplish, and that's what we have to do. Because if you don't have the people behind you, you can do the greatest things, but you're not in office long enough to make them happen. And I think this is one of those things that every government has to take on. We can't let the other parties make hay with this. We've got to really apply ourselves to make sure that the public appreciates what long-term supply is and choices between gas, hydro, and so on really mean.
Thank you very much. Eric Hoskins.
Well, the renewable energy sector is a sector that is moving incredibly fast, as many of you know. And so I think that we have a great opportunity as a party and as a government to take stock of how far we've come and the successes that we've had, but also to realize that we need to recalibrate. And in some cases, I think, press the reset button. And certainly in the areas where when energy projects have local support because of the economic development and other possibilities that come with them, they make a lot of sense. But I think we need to do a better job at not only being consistent across the province, but in listening to our local communities, our municipalities, when we engage them in some of these projects. And so I've proposed what I am calling YIMBY, yes, in my backyard, where we actually take, because the FIT program is so oversubscribed now in renewable energies, whether it's solar or wind, that we can actually afford to have two piles of proposals. Those that don't enjoy the explicit support of neighbors communities, neighbors and communities that we often indirectly, unfortunately, pit against one another, and they don't have the support of the municipalities. And then what I'm interested in is the other pile where you've got a private sector proponent which has collaborated and coordinated with the local communities and the neighbors and found a way, and often it may even be through local cooperatives where the benefit accrues to the community itself, the financial benefit. And so you have those YIMBY projects which enjoy the support of the municipality and the community that I would give priority to and a heavier weighting, and that would be my fast-track pile.
Thank you. Harinder Takar.
We actually already have surplus energy, so we don't really need to build more energy. We are giving this energy at times to other provinces at very nominal cost, and they are actually using our energy to attract the competitors to go to their areas. So what we need to do is, if we need more energy, we should focus on conserving energy, but I think we need to take the surplus energy we have and use to our advantage at this point of time. I think the best way to do is actually attract investment and provide incentives on the basis of energy to attract investment to our province. I think that's what we need to do. We don't need to build more energy. I think this the whole discussion about having local input and all that, I think it doesn't really matter at this point of time because we have already signed contracts. If those contracts come online, we will even have more surplus energy at this point in the province. So we need to find a way to use that surplus energy to attract investment to our province, not give it free to the other province so they can use it against us to attract investment.
Thank you, Mr. Takar. Kathleen Wynne.
So I actually think that community buy-in does matter, and I think that the work that Chris Bentley's doing right now and the way he has put into the process waiting for willing host communities, I think that's very, very important in whatever we do going forward. And I think, you know, Eric's notion of having the two piles and waiting, I think we need to move more in that direction, and Chris is starting down that road. So I think that community process is very, very important, whatever it is we do going forward. There are some communities, there's some connectivity issues, particularly in the north. If we look at Aboriginal communities, I think that we need to make sure that we address those issues because there are communities that are not connected to the grid, that are struggling with their energy needs, and we need to look at that. I also think we need to review the long-term energy plan. Sandra's absolutely right. There's a sliver of megawatts left. The Green Energy Act was always designed, the FIT program was always designed for the cost to go down and to be phased down. And so we need to relook at those targets and determine whether they are the right ones and make our decisions going forward based on that.
Thank you very much. Charles Souza.
Well, as some of you may know, I've been pretty familiar with power plants, and it's one of the reasons I got involved in politics in the first place. In my riding, I had the worst polluter in all of Ontario, the Four Sisters, a coal plant that was there all my life that I was growing up. We tore it down, and we now have a waterfront that's able to be used for generations to come. Since then, there was talk about putting more polluting gas plants in the community really close to people's homes. And this is what I fought. I fought to protect, not in my riding, wasn't a neighboring riding. I fought it and I opposed it as a member of the community. I opposed it still as a candidate. I opposed it when I was a member. I opposed it when I became a minister. And I oppose it still when I sought re-election because it was wrongly cited, literally a stone throw away from people's homes. This is why we need a proper system that engages local communities from the get start, so that we do what's necessary, that we promote green and renewable energy and protect our future generations. We have lots of resources to do that. We got welcoming communities that want it. We need to work together to collaborate to succeed.
Thank you very much for your answers.